Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Molly was running around the apartment and getting ready for her flight. She was working as a flight attendant. It was her childhood dream to visit different countries, to see the whole world, and the woman liked the altitude. She was not afraid of it. On the contrary, she experienced an inexpressible delight, watching the clouds floating by the window and the tiny cities seen below. One thing that frustrated Molly was that every time she went on a trip, she had to leave her 3 children with a babysitter. The babies were very painful to part from, crying, and did not want their mother to leave. 3-year-old Mila was especially upset. She hugged her mother so tightly, nestled her whole body, and whispered, "Don't go, Mommy. I don't want to. Will you be back soon? We're so sick without you." Tears choked Molly. She stroked the babies on the head and soothed them as best she could. "Mom will be back soon. She'll make some money and bring everyone presents. Andrew's son, you're in charge. Keep an eye on your sisters and listen to your nanny. I promise, when I get back, we'll all go to Disneyland together for a whole day." On the way to the airport, Molly closed her eyes and began to remember her life. Not long ago, she could not have imagined that she would become a mother of 3 children at once and lose her beloved husband because of it, and how beautifully everything began. Molly grew up in an orphanage, an orphan with no extended family. She was dropped off at the gates of the orphanage a week after she was born. No note, no name, nothing. It was as if an unwanted kitten had been thrown out of the gate and managed. A janitor, early in the morning, was sweeping the orphanage grounds and was the first to find the basket with the baby in it. The baby grew up quiet and calm. She was loved by the caretakers and nannies for her obedience and lively mind. Molly at first often tried to hurt and bully other children, but her best friend, Nancy, was always there to protect her. She was the complete opposite of Molly, perky, determined, fought on a par with the boys. But among themselves, the girls got along great. They kind of complemented each other. Molly always balanced her friend, and that, on the contrary, tried to shake up the overly calm girl. In appearance, Molly and Nancy were very similar, both dark-haired, brown-eyed, with curly, beautiful curls, just like sisters. Molly was an excellent student. She was good at all the subjects, especially English. Even her pronunciation worked by itself, without any effort. The teacher, Anthony, could not be happy, because usually children have problems with basic subjects, to say nothing of the English language. But Molly was different. She diligently studied reference books, dictionaries, and read additional literature, mastering the English language. Nancy, on the other hand, was a bit of a mess, with Molly doing most of her homework and dreaming of a handsome rich prince and an easy marriage. The girls often liked to talk for a long time and make plans for the future. Molly shared hers. "You know, Nancy, I most of all want to go to university, to the Department of Foreign Languages, to get a good profession and make my way in life. Although I understand that it's almost unrealistic for an orphan to get there. We are offered either a seamstress or a cook, a vocational school, and that's enough. And I also want to fly a real plane. Can you imagine how great it must be to be there in the clouds?" Nancy, on the other hand, had a different opinion. "No, I definitely don't want to study. It's not my thing. My dream is to meet a rich husband and live happily ever after. So what? Aren't we beautiful? Don't we deserve it? What if we're lucky?" Molly only laughed. "You can say that again. Wealthy princes marry wealthy princesses, and love with a poor orphan happens only in fairy tales and soap operas. It's certainly not realistic in life." However, from here on, life for the girls went according to their own script, without asking anyone. After graduating from the orphanage, our girlfriends were assigned to the outskirts of town and given a dead room each in the family dormitory. Molly was very upset, but Nancy cheered her up. "It's okay, my friend. Don't get sour. You know I'm handy. We'll fix it up and get on with our lives. The main thing is that we are together, next to each other. It's already more fun." Over time, the girls settled in. Molly actually went to university, though by correspondence, and got a job at a gas station. As a cashier, a day and a half. They had to live on something. One day, a respectable man, so nice, smelling of expensive perfume, stopped by to fill up. Molly served him friendly, and he kept his eyes on the brown-eyed Oriental beauty. For some reason, the girl's heart beat faster, and a stupid smile never left her face. When the visitor went outside, Molly suddenly found that he had not taken the change, and it was quite a large amount. Without a second thought, she apologized to the people in line and ran outside. "Man, wait, you forgot your change. Here, take it." He turned around and looked at the young girl in surprise. "Oh, really? I was thinking about something. Thank you for returning it." Nowadays, there are hardly any honest salesmen left. "My name is Alex. And you?" I'm Molly," confusedly answered the girl. Alex smiled. "I invite you, Molly, to dinner as a thank you and just because I like you so much. I know a decent Japanese restaurant. Do you like Japanese food?" Molly's heart was ready to jump out. She even blushed. "I don't know. It's so unexpected. Can I not come alone with a girlfriend? It's kind of scary. I don't know you at all." The man laughed. "You can, of course. Then I'll take a friend with me too. It'll be even more fun that way." "Well, see you tomorrow then. I won't say goodbye." Molly waved cheerfully at him and ran back behind the cash register, where customers were already grumbling unhappily in line. The day flew by, and in the evening, when she came home, the first thing she did was run to Nancy to share the news. Nancy just threw up her hands. "You're doing great. You haven't forgotten about me either. And you're quiet too. What if I'm lucky and those businessmen aren't married? I won't let him get away with it. I'll get in right away. I'm so sick of writing these sheets. I'm sick of it." The friend was embarrassed. "I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So unexpected, of course. What if we embarrass you? I mean, we've never been to a Japanese restaurant. You probably have to eat with chopsticks, and I don't know how. The rich people will laugh at us and leave." Nancy just waved her hand. "You're so tedious, Molly. We'll sort it out on the spot. What are we going to wear? Not in jeans and sneakers, are we?" Molly's misgivings were completely unfounded. The evening went wonderfully. Alex came with a friend, Andrew. They worked in different companies, but were friends and sometimes vacationed together. Alex was divorced. Andrew was not married yet, and so the two families formed. Andrew and Nancy lived soul to soul. They did not quarrel, and she bore him first a son named after his father, Andrew, and 2 years later 2 more children, Jenna and Mila. Surprisingly, childbirth and pregnancy were easy for my friend. She did not even gain weight. She was always positive and active. It seemed her irrepressible energy, and enough for 5 children. She took the children to school and kindergartens, then to classes. She managed to cook delicious lunches and pamper her husband. Everything was burning in her hands. But Molly's personal life didn't work out so well. She loved Alex, though he was a real character, tried to please him in everything, and literally torn between school, work, and home. And she was never able to get pregnant for Christ's sake. But Alex did not insist on it. On the contrary, when they sometimes went to visit Nancy and Andrew, her husband was shocked and often resented it afterwards. God, it's a madhouse out there. There's a lot of noise, a lot of noise, a lot of yelling. It's like a kindergarten, not a house. Your friend's as crazy as a cat, breeding like a cat. There's no privacy. I'd be mad as hell. Molly, on the contrary, secretly envied Nancy. Their house was always fun, simple, smelled of cinnamon cookies and childhood. This is where a real strong family, which she and her friends so dreamed of in the shelter. Molly began to notice that Alex became much cooler to her, often allowed himself to come in drunk. Intimacy became something ordinary and routine. It was as if a wall was growing between them, thin at first, but thicker and thicker over the years. And a year ago, a terrible grief happened. Nancy and Andrew went to a fundraiser. They bought pictures, and the money went to orphanages. They left their babies with a babysitter. But on their way home, on the night highway, they were run over by a drunk driver. In an instant, Molly lost her closest loved one and her husband, and Nancy's 3 children were left orphans. Her friend couldn't let that happen, because back at the orphanage, she and Nancy had made a vow that they wouldn't betray each other and that they would be together to the end. So she decided to get custody and take all 3 children with her. But it didn't work out that way. Alex, upon learning of this, literally freaked out and started yelling, "I don't understand. Are you crazy or what? Over my dead body, I strongly object. Why do we need 3 children and even more strangers? They actually need to be fed, clothed, taught, and provided for. So your friend chopped them up with Andrew, and now we have to deal with it." The woman cried and tried to talk sense into her abusive husband. Alex, wake up. How can you say that? Nancy is dead and broken, and so is your friend, by the way. She was closer to me than my sister. She fought to keep me in the orphanage. We shared every crust of bread with her. It wasn't the children's fault. What awaits them in an orphanage? Have you been there? Do you know? It's hell. You wouldn't wish that on an enemy. Not only that, they could be separated, and then they would grow up far away from each other. Well, we're not poor. We don't go from bread to water. Let's give these kids a happy childhood, especially since we don't have any of our own. But Alex pounded his fist on the table and barked, almost cursing. I said no, period. If you take the kids, you get a divorce. I don't eat other people's mouths to hump for the rest of my life. Molly had a very hard time making this choice because she loved Alex deeply and truly and knew that if she took the children, she would probably be alone because 3 children is not 1. But there was no way she could betray her friend either. How could she sleep soundly afterwards, knowing that Nancy's children were suffering in the orphanage? She did get custody and divorced Alex. He shouted angrily goodbye to her. What a fool! You'll be sorry you lost such a man, but it will be too late. Molly just waved her hand, swallowing her tears. So my fate is such a miserable one. Goodbye, Alex, and be happy. She cried into her pillow at home for a long time, not understanding how it could be. Why is Alex such a cruel man? Didn't he feel the slightest pity for the children, and nothing stirred in his soul? Molly combined her and Nancy's rooms, and she got 2. This is where she brought her 3 children. After all, Nancy's late husband's estate was immediately raided by distant relatives, only they didn't want the children for nothing. So they were only glad there was some blessed one willing to take on such an unbearable burden. Only one person supported Molly, a kind-hearted neighbor. She agreed to look after the little ones on the days when Molly was on shift. It was terribly hard at first. Money was categorically insufficient, had to always borrow from colleagues before the paycheck. And the children could not come to terms with the death of their parents and recover from this grief. If little Mila immediately began to flatter Molly, the older Andrew shied away from her, shut down, and even began to stutter a little on account of his nerves. Whenever Molly tried to hug or cuddle him, he would squirm and mutter, "You're not my mother. Why did she leave us? Why did she die? My daddy too. I don't want that. I want to be like before, to live with daddy and mummy." We had to take him to a psychologist and get him out of that state for a long time. And it wasn't easy for Molly, because 3 children was very hard. She often thought about Nancy now and wondered where she got the strength not to tire and to share her love with everyone. How did she do it? 6 months passed. Molly was exhausted, but no matter how much she worked, she still didn't have enough money. And then Andrew got seriously ill. He had always been quiet and calm, unlike the restless Jenna and Mila, and now he was weak. He began to sleep a lot, his nose and lips were often blue, and he complained of a pain in his heart as soon as he walked even a short distance. And then he actually fainted at school during gym class. The boy was admitted to the pediatric department for a comprehensive examination. That's where it turned out that the child had a heart defect and needed a surgery, but it cost, as usual, a fabulous amount of money. Of course, they were put on a waiting list, but they had to wait more than a year. But one chance encounter turned Molly's whole life upside down. Our heroine had just finished her shift and was rushing to the store to get groceries, and then home to her children. At the door, Molly ran into a very stylishly and fashionably dressed lady with dark sunglasses and an expensive handbag over her shoulder. The stranger suddenly took off her glasses and exclaimed, "Molly? Honey, hello. How are you? How many years? How many winters? Where did you disappear to? I haven't heard from you since Alex's divorce." A dumbfounded Molly could hardly recognize this lady as a mutual acquaintance of her and her ex-husband, Kelly. The women were happy to meet, sat down at a table in a nearby cafe, and chatted amicably. My friend told me that she had also divorced her husband, John, who was a notorious womanizer and philanderer, and had quit everything and become a stewardess. She is glad and happy. The pay is so good, and she can see the world. And the job is not dusty, although it is responsible, of course. And Molly told me that she is now raising 3 children of her deceased friend, that it is very hard, the cashier's salary is not enough for anything, and she can hardly make ends meet. Kelly immediately offered, "Molly, so why are you souring? You should quit that gas station and come to us. You seem to have excellent English, and you have an education, and you're so pretty yourself. Do you want me to talk to the management and ask them for you?" The woman was even confused. "You can say that too. You're alone, and I have 3 kids around my neck. Where am I going to take them? I have to look after them every day when I'm on the road. Although I would be happy, since childhood I dreamed of it." Kelly parried, "Molly, we don't live in the Stone Age. That's what nannies are for. I'll tell you how much you'll get a month, and you'll understand everything. I understand it's constant travel, but you can provide for the family with dignity, and not think, buy bread or a sausage today." Molly, when she heard the size of the paycheck, even whistled. She had never seen money like that before, and compared to that amount, she wasn't making much at the gas station now. Molly thought about it. Should I really give it a try? What if they take it? I have nothing to lose. At least Jenna can wear clothes to kindergarten, Andrew can save up for surgery, the kids need a closet change, and repairs don't hurt. But it's constant travel, so it turns out that the kids will again be sad and suffer separation. What to do? And yet, after weighing everything, Molly made up her mind. "I agree. You tell me where to go and so on. I want to try. But the personal life did not work out. Maybe at least the dream of childhood will come true." Molly successfully completed the training course. She was taught the rules of first aid, how to behave with passengers according to the instructions, and what to do with problematic customers, of which there are many on flights. At the final test, she was tested on her knowledge of English and behavior in emergency situations. 3 months later, Molly was on her first flight. The children panicked and cried a lot. "Mommy, don't go away. You'll be gone for a week. How can we be without you? Don't leave us." Molly's heart was torn apart because she had long genuinely loved all 3 and considered them family. She tried her best to comfort them. "My dears, I can't do it any other way. This new job will bring a lot of money. We'll buy you toys and clothes. We'll go to the amusement park. We just need to be patient. For now, listen to your neighbor. Don't play around so I won't worry. And then I'll find you a nanny and we'll choose together. Andrew, look, don't eat ice cream. You have a weak throat. And don't let Mila walk barefoot on the cold floor. And don't stay up too late, or you won't wake up in the morning. That's it, my little bunnies. Come here, I'll give you a big hug." On the first flight, Molly was very nervous. Her knees were shaking, especially when the plane hit turbulence. But then, with time, she got used to it. She loved her job. She really enjoyed it. The only disappointment was the constant flights and separation from the kids. After 6 months, life really did get better. Now Molly didn't have to worry about how to pay the utilities or what to buy clothes and groceries for. She had enough for everything. She was very proud that her children were always dressed up. They had phones and new toys like everyone else. She sometimes dreamt about Nancy. She didn't say anything, just looked at her friend and smiled appreciatively. And Molly knew she was doing everything right. And today, Molly was off on a special flight. Her partner persuaded her to cater a rich person's wedding right in the sky, on the plane. That's the rich people's whim. They promised very good pay. Molly didn't really want to. She'd already seen inadequate drunken passengers, but decided that such a sum wouldn't hurt her. She'd add it to her son's surgery. It would be more money. And with a heavy heart, she agreed. The private plane had a bar and a place to dance, all the conditions for a heavenly celebration. The few guests, all dressed up rich people, had already gathered, and the plane took off. The pilot, James, was already a proven pilot. Molly had known him for a long time, and she was calm. He was just an ace at his job. But the plane happened to hit some turbulence. It shook a lot. The frightened passengers panicked and began to fret. Molly and her partner remained calm as required by instruction and helped them to take their seats and buckle up. Our heroine was just about to buckle up a young girl when she saw the groom sitting behind her, and she just gasped. It was Alex, her ex-husband. Everything was stirred up and overturned in her soul. She even felt sick. She hurried to turn away so he wouldn't recognize her and retreated to the bow of the liner. Her thoughts raced one after another. You rascal, you found yourself a rich little bimbo. Well, 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 your wife's going to suffer. She'll be in for a world of hurt. The wedding was in full swing, with guests feasting on delicacies and drinking champagne. getting drunk and dancing to loud music. My partner was running around like a madwoman, serving customers, and Molly hardly ever went into the salon. Emily became furious and began reprimanding her. "Baby, why don't you come out to the guests? Are you trying to put me in charge of everything? I'm already falling off my feet, and the money is half. You're such a sly one." Molly replied with tears in her eyes. "You can have all the royalties. Do you even know who's getting married? It's my ex-husband, Alex. He dumped me and found himself a rich girl. Do you think I like watching this? It makes my heart bleed. You can kill me if you want. I won't go out." Emily fell silent and quiet, then answered, "All right, if that's the case. I'll manage somehow. Well, don't get so upset. You'll find love again." Molly was quietly observing the festivities, and she noticed this. The hubby kept winking at some young beauty who was one of the guests invited to the wedding, and then wrote her something on a napkin and discreetly handed it to her. The girl read it, smiled slyly, and threw it in the trash. The young wife did not notice anything because the party was in full swing. The plane landed in an exotic country, and it was supposed to stay there for 24 hours. Molly, not knowing why, immediately began to rummage through the trash for that very napkin. Her gut told her something was wrong. Finally, among the mountain of garbage, she found it, unwrapped it, and read it. "Love, calm down. Don't be angry. I don't love that fool, and I'll get rid of her soon. It's all for our sake. We'll live like kings with her millions." The blood hit Molly in the head. That's the way to go. What a bastard. Then the bride is in real danger. We must warn her at once. The woman found the pilot's guest lists, found out the name and phone number of Karina Vasilieva, and immediately called her when she got off the plane. "Hello, is this Camille? Hello, my name is Molly, and I'm the flight attendant on the plane you flew in today. I need to see you urgently one-on-one. You are in danger. I'm begging you. Just 10 minutes of your time." The girl answered grudgingly, "What kind of a stupid joke is that? I just got married, and I'm on my honeymoon, by the way." "Well, if you insist, then let's meet in a cafe today. I'll text you the address, but I think you have something wrong. My husband just worships me, and I'm certainly not in any danger." Molly arrived at the cafe even earlier. She was afraid she would be late. She ordered coffee and waited for Camille. Exactly at the appointed time, the girl, so sweet, bloomy, and happy, strode into the room. Molly waved to her. Camille took a seat at the table and began with the main thing. "Well, tell me, what are you here for? What did you want to tell me?" Molly silently handed her the napkin. The girl read what was written there 5 times and began to change her face abruptly. Alex's handwriting was, without a doubt. Camille shrieked, "Where did you get this?" Molly began to explain incoherently. "You see, when I agreed to cater a private wedding, I didn't know who was getting married. And then, already in the salon, I saw Alex. It was my ex-husband, but that's not the point. I saw Alex winking at one of the ladies. The blonde one, she was also wearing a burgundy dress. And then he handed her this napkin. So I decided to sneak a peek at what it said. And when I read it, I was shocked. So I thought I'd warn you. And then it's up to you to decide." Camille's face changed, and she became sad and thoughtful. "I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. Until half an hour ago, I was the happiest woman in the world. And now I realize my husband has a mistress. It's horrible. Excuse me, I have to go. I need to think about everything. But wait a minute. Alex told me his ex-wife was a greedy, scandalous bitch who only took his money, walked around, and didn't work. So that's you." Molly grinned bitterly. "Well, Alex, of course, is a master of bullshit, and you were not left out of it. I worked all my life at a gas station as a cashier, and I was very fond of this scoundrel, in spite of his difficult character. But a close friend of mine was in a terrible car accident and died. 3 children were left orphaned. How could I leave them? I was an orphan myself. I grew up in an orphanage. I know how bad it is there. I couldn't stop begging and pleading with Alex to take them away. He wouldn't do it. He said he didn't need someone else's baby. And this despite the fact that the father of the children was his best friend. We were family friends. That's how we got divorced. So now I'm a mother of 3. I'm doing the best I can. And you, please be careful. You don't know your husband very well. Alex is capable of a lot of things for money. I'll go. Have a good day." Camille decided to double-check everything. A worm of doubt began to eat away at her from within. When she arrived home, she discreetly installed cameras in the apartment and cheated. In the evening, over dinner, she entreatingly told her husband, "Cute, I didn't tell you. I have the most important gift for you. Can you guess?" Alex thought dreamily, "What was my bunny thinking? Did you decide to give me a car?" Camille laughed. "Better. I'm pregnant. You're going to be a daddy. Isn't that amazing? We're having a baby. Yours and mine." In fact, Camille wasn't pregnant at all. She just wanted to see how her husband reacted and speed up the process of checking. After all, if he wanted to eliminate her, he would do it in the shortest possible time. After all, he certainly didn't want the baby. Alex tried to pretend to be overjoyed, but it was ridiculous and implausible, and Camille noticed it at once. She looked at her husband differently now and noticed little things she hadn't seen before. The very next day, hubby suddenly said, "You know what, my love? Let's celebrate the occasion. Somewhere secluded on a lake or a river, wine, fruit, and a sea of love." Camille immediately smelt something wrong and answered, "Great, but I'm feeling a little stormy now, so let's just stay here at home. Let's sit on the summer terrace, celebrate, and then go for a walk in the park." Alex volunteered to organize everything himself. He ordered seafood, salads, drinks, juice, and set the table himself. And Camille said the wedding was in full swing, with guests feasting on delicacies and drinking champagne, getting drunk and dancing to loud music. My partner was running around like a madwoman, serving customers, and Molly hardly ever went into the salon. Emily became furious and began reprimanding her. "Baby, why don't you come out to the guests? Are you trying to put me in charge of everything? I'm already falling off my feet. And the money is half. You're such a sly one." Molly replied with tears in her eyes. "You can have all the royalties. Do you even know who's getting married? It's my ex-husband, Alex. He dumped me and found himself a rich girl. Do you think I like watching this? It makes my heart bleed. You can kill me if you want. I won't go out." Emily fell silent and quiet, then answered, "All right, if that's the case. I'll manage somehow. Well, don't get so upset. You'll find love again." Molly was quietly observing the festivities, and she noticed this. The hubby kept winking at some young beauty who was one of the guests invited to the wedding, and then wrote her something on a napkin and discreetly handed it to her. The girl read it, smiled slyly, and threw it in the trash. The young wife did not notice anything because the party was in full swing. The plane landed in an exotic country, and it was supposed to stay there for 24 hours. Molly, not knowing why, immediately began to rummage through the trash for that very napkin. Her gut told her something was wrong. Finally, among the mountain of garbage, she found it, unwrapped it, and read it. "Love, calm down. Don't be angry. I don't love that fool, and I'll get rid of her soon. It's all for our sake. We'll live like kings with our millions." The blood hit Molly in the head. That's the way to go. What a bastard. Then the bride is in real danger. We must warn her at once. The woman found the pilot's guest lists, found out the name and phone number of Karina Vasilieva, and immediately called her when she got off the plane. "Hello. Is this Camille? Hello, my name is Molly, and I'm the flight attendant on the plane you flew in today. I need to see you urgently one-on-one. You are in danger. I'm begging you. Just 10 minutes of your time." The girl answered grudgingly, "What kind of a stupid joke is that? I just got married, and I'm on my honeymoon, by the way." "Well, if you insist, then let's meet in a cafe today. I'll text you the address, but I think you have something wrong. My husband just worships me, and I'm certainly not in any danger." Molly arrived at the cafe even earlier. She was afraid she would be late. She ordered coffee and waited for Camille. Exactly at the appointed time, the girl, so sweet, bloomy, and happy, strode into the room. Molly waved to her. Camille took a seat at the table and began with the main thing. "Well, tell me, what are you here for? What did you want to tell me?" Molly silently handed her the napkin. The girl read what was written there 5 times and began to change her face abruptly. Alex's handwriting was, without a doubt. Camille laughed. "It's not a world without good people. I'll make sure you get the maximum sentence. So you'll rot in jail instead of resorts. Get that bastard out of here. I'll file for divorce myself." When Alex was taken away, Camille finally let herself relax and burst into tears. She wanted so badly to share her grief with someone, and then she remembered the stewardess and immediately dialed her. "Molly, are you in town now? You were right then. Alex almost killed me. He tried to poison me, the bastard. Can you come to me? Please, I'm so sick." Molly rushed over right away. She knew how badly Camille was feeling, having barely come out of a painful divorce herself. They hugged each other like relatives, drank wine, and cried, believing each other's souls. Camille never tired of thanking Molly. "Thank you, Molly. You really saved my life. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be alive now. And that bastard would be living it up with his bimbo on my money. We live in the same city. Let's be friends. Let's talk. You said you had problems with your son. I can help. Look for a doctor, and I'll pay for everything. I don't know about you, but I won't go near a man for a long time. Everybody sees me as a bag of money, and nobody cares about my soul. Fuck them all." From that day on, Molly and Camille became best friends. Camille often came to visit them. The children loved her immediately because she was very kind by nature and adored children. Their son, Andrew, had a very expensive heart surgery. Camille helped with the money, as she promised, and the boy quickly recovered. Molly even took a leave of absence and spent all her time at her son's bedside. It was then that he, perhaps for the first time since the death of his parents, sincerely hugged her and said, "Mommy, I love you so much. We are a real friendly family. Thank you. I'm not a low kid anymore, and I understand how hard it is for you to be with us." Molly, too, hugged her son and whispered, "All three of you have been family to me for a long time. Remember, no matter what happens, I'm here for you. I'll always shelter you from trouble, and I'll never leave you." Camille, in turn, decided to introduce Molly to her mother. The woman's name was Evelyn, and she had worked all her life as a midwife in a maternity hospital. She did not leave the profession until the very last, even though she had a millionaire husband. She truly loved her job and cared about every case. She had a severe, incurable, serious illness with only months to live. Camille hired the best caregivers, custom-prescribed strong painkillers, and checked on Mom as often as she could. She didn't know how to tell her that Alex had turned out to be such a jerk and Camille was alone again. After all, her mother was so happy that she would go away peacefully, knowing that her daughter was in good hands. So to soften the hard conversation, the woman decided to introduce her mother to Molly, her best friend. Molly said hello and looked at the poor woman with her eyes drooping in sickness. At first, they talked about the scoundrel Alex. Evelyn only shook her head. "God, my daughter. How did God keep you from imminent doom? And to you, Molly, thank you so much for not staying away, and yet you warned my daughter of the danger. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who your parents are, how you live. I can't go anywhere. I'm exhausted, and live communication is very important for me." Molly began to tell, "I myself am an orphan, brought up in the Ray of Hope Orphanage. I was abandoned there almost immediately after I was born, without a note or any information. Our janitor found me. He named me Malu as his granddaughter and gave me the same rare surname as he did, Stutzberg. He had Germans in his family. There I became friends with one girl, Nancy. We were like sisters, even closer. And we swore to each other that if disaster happened, we would not leave each other and we would support each other. Then we got married almost at the same time. Nancy had 3 children, but God never gave me one. Alex was my ex-husband. We lived like everyone else, argued and made up. My spouse had a complicated character, but I loved him much and tried to accommodate him. But one day a terrible grief happened. My friend and her husband died in a car accident, and the children were orphaned in an instant. I mean, how could I leave them? Betray my friend? I decided to get custody and raise them. But my husband gave me an ugly scandal. He was totally against it. So we got divorced, and then it so happened that I became a stewardess. It was there on the plane, attending his wedding, that I witnessed my ex-husband's meanness." Evelyn stared at Molly. "Wait, Molly, how old are you, honey?" Molly answered in surprise. 27, just like Camille. "Why? Why do you ask?" The old woman suddenly cried bitterly, shaking her whole body. "Forgive me, Molly. Forgive me, honey. If you can. I was the one who dropped you off at the orphanage, you know? It all makes sense." Molly was just taken aback, and Camille was speechless. "How so, Mom? You're talking nonsense. Maybe you're not feeling well. How are you feeling?" Camille and Molly looked at each other, thinking at the same time that maybe the woman had lost her mind because of her illness. But Evelyn pulled herself together and continued. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not crazy. Listen to everything to the end and do not interrupt. I'm from a poor family myself. I grew up in poverty. My mother worked as a nanny. My father only drank. And since childhood, I dreamed of becoming a doctor. That's just raved about it. Obviously, I did not get into medical school. I had no money, but I got into a technical school and became a midwife. I loved my job madly. I cared about every woman in labor. I did everything to my conscience. I married a builder, Nicolay, but he also liked to drink and we didn't have children. I suffered with him for 3 years and divorced. So I lived alone. My parents were dead by then. Then one night a woman came knocking on my door. I came out sleepy. I couldn't understand anything, and she was screaming, "Evelyn, help me. I'm begging you. There's a woman in our basement giving birth. She's screaming." I said, "Call an ambulance. The medics will help her. What's that got to do with me?" But that woman kept begging. She can't go to the ambulance. Kate is homeless. She has no documents. It's a dark story. She's going to die. She's been suffering for hours. Help. I pity the dog, and here the person is dying. Have pity. How could I refuse because I took the Hippocratic Oath? I quickly gathered sheets and a basin, alcohol, a tonometer, and rushed off. There was a young woman in the homeless shelter giving birth, no more than 20 years old. Kate was her name. She was pregnant with twins. The labor was complicated. The woman was thrashing around in her bunk, delirious. I was scared at first. What if she died in my arms? And I would also go to jail. But then I pulled myself together and began delivering the baby. Fortunately, everything turned out okay. The 2 girls were born. They didn't weigh much, but they looked healthy. I cut the umbilical cord, swaddled the babies as they were supposed to be swaddled, but the mother was sobbing and turning her nose up at them. Thank you. Finally, I gave birth. I thought I was going to die. Take my kids away. I don't need them. Give them to an orphanage or something. I'm a vagrant. I'm facing jail time. I'm running from the police. Where can I have 2 kids? And I got them pregnant. One of them took them and threw them away, and I had to carry them off right away. I resented it. How on earth, Kate? Won't you even look at the babies? You've been carrying them for 9 months, haven't you? They're your own flesh and blood. But the woman in labor flatly refused. No, or you'll get sorry. I know myself. Take me away, I beg you. I'm lost. I'm a lost soul. Maybe someone will adopt the girls at the orphanage and their lives will get better. I'm sure they won't have a good life with me. What can I do? I brought the babies home, crying my heart out. I myself do not have children, and here are 2, and do not want his own mother. And then I had a crazy idea to keep one of the babies, adopt them, and raise them as my own. I couldn't decide to keep both of them because I'm divorced, and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to make it. That's when I took you, Molly, to the orphanage at night, wrapped you up warmly, and left you. I knew they'd find you in the morning, and I kept Camille, adopted her as she should have been, gave her last name, and raised her as my own daughter. But my heart was not in place, and I was slowly learning about your fate. I was told that a janitor found you and gave you your last name, and then I found out a year later what orphanage you were in. The nurse said that you were smart and cute, like a doll. Maybe I would get lucky and someone would take you away. And then my life abruptly changed, and I met Steve. He fell in love with me at first sight and did not give a pass. We met at the maternity hospital. He was visiting his sister there. I looked a lot like his late mother, so he fell in love. He took Camille as his own, adopted her as he should have. She was 3 years old at the time, moved me to his mansion. Stephen already had a big business. He had his own stores. He could provide for me. He didn't insist that I work. But I didn't want to, so I worked until I retired as a midwife. I often thought of you, Molly. My conscience tormented me. I never told Stephen the truth. I thought you'd been adopted a long time ago. Camille and my husband and I loved her as if she were our own. Loved her dearly. Stephen died a year ago, so suddenly a blood clot burst, and then I went down with it, probably from nerves. It's draining me, this damn disease. Soon it will take me to itself. At least I have relieved my soul before I die. So forgive me, Molly, I was cowardly, I chickened out, I separated you from your sister. And listening to your story, I realize what a holy woman you are. You put 3 kids on your shoulders, you weren't afraid of anything, and I couldn't." Camille and Molly were shocked to hear everything. Then they looked at each other and simultaneously cried and threw themselves into each other's arms. Camille sobbed, my little sister, my God, what happiness! Just incredible. We became best friends, shared one husband for 2, and didn't even know we were sisters." Molly also wailed, "You know, Camille, I was so mad at you on the plane. I thought that's who Alex traded me for. And then, when I saw his meanness, for some reason I felt sorry for you. You believe as if you were not a stranger to me. And I decided to find you, to warn you, and it turns out it was the voice of blood, I guess. Sister, I thought I was alone, like a finger in the world, with no relatives, no one, and then I was so happy." Molly rushed tearfully to Evelyn's side. "I'm not mad at you at all. Why? You didn't give birth to us. On the contrary, if it hadn't been for you, my sister and I wouldn't even be here. A woman in labor could have died without any help. At least we raised Camille. What about our mother? You know nothing about her? Is she alive or dead?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, alas, I don't know much about her, except that the woman's name was Kate. I delivered the baby and left with the babies. As I said goodbye, I gave the poor mother a packet of antibiotics and told her to take them just in case. That is all. I never met her again. I don't know why she was impoverished, what she had done, and why she was hiding from the police. I didn't turn her in like she asked me to." Camille was distraught. "Mammy, I'm amazed. Why didn't you tell me this before? I could have never known about my own sister. How could you do that?" Evelyn cried. "I'm sorry, my daughter. I was terribly ashamed. My conscience burned all these years that I had separated you, even though I myself had lived like in Christ's bosom. I could have got Molly up and on her feet. I was afraid Stephen would find out my secret and leave me. Besides, how can you tell such a thing? You're my family, do you realize it or not? I don't even have the heart to call you adopted. I sincerely love you." Camille threw herself into the arms of her own person. "Sorry, Mommy. I love you a lot too, and I'm grateful for a happy, carefree childhood, and I loved Daddy, and I couldn't even think that I was a stranger." All 3 of them had a long heart-to-heart talk, for they were bound together by a common thread of kinship and destiny. From that day on, the sisters were almost inseparable. Camille enjoyed babysitting the little ones on weekends and now took them to her house when Molly was on another trip. And for little Mila, Camille became a godmother. And a year later, a representative of another branch came to Karina's company with a delegation. After the official part of the visit, a dinner party was to be held. Camille decided to invite Molly there as well. The director, Ethan, immediately noticed such a beautiful young woman, he began actively courting and complimenting her, and his colleague, Frank, courted Camille. When the guests were almost gone, Ethan asked Molly quietly, "Let me walk you home, Molly, and maybe have a cup of coffee. I hate to part with you." The woman laughed. "You're wasting your breath. I'm a mother of 3. Usually after this phrase, any fan of the classics should evaporate. Who needs such a burden?" Ethan laughed too. "So our case is not a classic one. It doesn't scare me at all. I'm a widower, and I'm also raising my son alone. His name is Rob. He's 5 years old. So I totally understand. So I'll walk you out, shall I? Do you mind?" Molly had forgotten what it was like to walk hand in hand with a man. They admired the bright stars and strolled leisurely through the night city. Molly quietly turned the key in the lock. The apartment was quiet. The nightlight was on. There were toys scattered everywhere and a pile of dishes and cookie crumbs in the kitchen. The little ones were asleep in their cribs. In the middle of the table was a covered plate. Molly opened it and saw a masterpiece: burnt eggs and a smile drawn with ketchup, and a note misspelled in a child's handwriting. "We made you dinner. We've done our homework. Bon appetit. We love you, Mommy." Tears flowed from Molly's eyes past her will. She wiped them away with her hand and said, "It must be worth living for moments like these. They are the most important thing in the world. How I love them. You have no idea." She walked quietly into the bedroom, readjusted the confused blanket, stroked each one on the head, and kissed them softly. Only then did she and Ethan sit down in the kitchen for coffee. Ethan was amazed at the courage and kindness of this fragile woman, working as a stewardess and raising 3 other people's children at the same time, to remain so attractive and desirable at the same time. He couldn't get enough of Molly. He loved everything about her. How she squinted at the sun, how she turned her head, tossed a curl behind her ear, laughed loudly and euphumously. The man realized that he fell in love completely and irrevocably. The couple began dating and soon planned a modest wedding. Surprisingly, the children of Molly immediately accepted Ethan, and his son became friends with Molly, so they now have 4 children together. Ethan was a very successful businessman, and Tanya no longer needed to work. She could finally focus on her family, her children, and herself. Ethan jokingly said, "And if you miss the sky, just say the word, and we'll fly the whole family wherever you say." Camille also found her love, Ethan's friend and companion, Frank. The man had long sought the woman's attention, for the woman, painfully burned by her marriage to the scoundrel Alex, was afraid to let Frank into her soul. But he was persistent and patient. He was always there for her, surrounded her with such care and tenderness that in the end Camille gave up, and they also modestly got married. The woman did not want any more ostentatiousness. Now it was important for her to save her little world of love from everyone and just to be happy. The sisters had not seen each other for months, either because they were moving or settling into a new family life, or because they were busy with household chores. Finally, they decided to sit together in a cozy cafe, chatting about life. Camille immediately noticed that Molly somehow imperceptibly changed, recovered, refreshed, her eyes shining. She could not resist paying her a compliment. "Molly, you look wonderful. You look different. I don't know how to say it, happy, calm. You changed your hair. Well done. It suits you very well. So what shall we order? Coffee or a glass of wine?" Molly responded entreatingly, "And I can't have wine now. I'm going to tell you the news. You're going to fall down. I'm pregnant. Don't say anything. I'm shocked myself." Camille even opened her mouth in surprise. "Wow, what about Ethan? Is he happy? That's crazy. Now you're going to have 5 children. Oh, come on, Molly." The woman laughed. Ethan was very happy. But at first I even burst into tears. For some reason I was so scared. I remembered my late friend Nancy, and I thought, God forbid anything should happen. How will I be alone with so many people? But on the other hand, I've always wanted to have my own baby, to breastfeed it, to bear it. It must be a real pleasure, right? But Ethan surprised me again. He opened a bank account for me and the kids, so I don't have to worry. And in general, Camille, I'm very happy with him. I finally felt like a woman. I began to sleep well, stopped fidgeting because of the constant worry that I cannot raise one child. We all together every weekend must go somewhere to rest. Kids just love it. And you, my good man. Camille also reported cheerfully, "You know, I resisted for a long time after the scoundrel Alex. I saw all the other men as scoundrels. But Frank is completely different. He doesn't sing my praises. He doesn't swear eternal love. But his actions speak for themselves. He actually proves his love. And this is very valuable. I hope I will be a mommy soon too. Looking at you, I really want to. I am happy for you, sis. It is so good that we met, that you found me, because it is so important to have a dear person on earth. My own little blood. And I have news for you too. I found out something about our biological mother, and I even found her grave. She hasn't been alive for a long time." Molly even jumped up in her chair. "You what? How did you do it? Who is she?" Camille sighed. Kate grew up in a dysfunctional family of alcoholics. That's why she went down the wrong path early on, got involved with bad company, never really lived anywhere for very long, and then almost went to jail for stealing. I even managed to get a picture of her. Oh, and the beautiful appearance of our mother. Just look at her. Molly looked at the old, yellowed, crumpled photo. It showed a very beautiful, oriental-looking girl with long, curly hair and a charming smile. Now it was clear to Molly who she and Camille resembled so much. The same eyes, long, fluffy eyelashes, and mop of black hair. Tears flowed from her eyes, and she whispered, "Mama, Mama, so beautiful and so unhappy. How could it be?" Camille hugged her sister. "Yeah, Molly, so now I understand why she immediately put us in the wrong hands. You can't blame her. Mom just wanted us to have a better life than she had. We'll go to her grave tomorrow, clean it up, order a monument. No matter what our mom was, we are alive because of her.